Remember back in the late 90s when the internet was just starting to, like, take off?
Oh, yeah.
Some folks saw the potential right away.
Mm-hmm.
Others thought the whole thing was a fad.
Right.
But look at how it all turned out in the end.
Totally.
It completely reshaped everything.
Like everything.
And that's kind of the scale of impact we're talking about with AI.
Wow.
Not just in the tech world either, but in terms of how it'll affect your career over the next, 10 years or so.
The comparison to the internet, I think, is a good one.
Right.
It feels like we're on the edge of another one of those massive shifts.
Yeah.
Potentially even bigger than the internet.
You know, you sent me this lecture by Tim Gordon.
Yeah.
He's an AI expert at INSEAD.
Mm-hmm.
And he paints a really, really vivid picture.
Oh, good.
So today we're going to dive deep into his insights.
Okay.
We're going to unpack how AI will revolutionize businesses, how it'll shift global power,
Wow.
and most importantly, how you can navigate this whole new AI landscape.
So,
Because Gordon doesn't shy away from the dramatic implications of AI at all.
no, he does not.
But he emphasizes that it's not some kind of mystical force.
Right.
He says, at its core, AI is really a new way to build software. It's a really powerful tool with immense potential.
For sure.
For good and for bad.
It's a double-edged sword.
He starts by taking us on this journey through past technological revolutions,
Okay.
from mainframes to personal computers to the internet to smartphones,
Why?
and now AI.
Yeah.
And he points out how each of these leaps has disrupted entire industries
For sure.
and redefined how we live and work.
Yeah.
And Gordon has such a fascinating perspective.
Oh, so?
Because he really has had a front row seat to all of these disruptions.
Okay.
He shares these compelling examples of how the internet devastated the newspaper industry and how Google just made the yellow pages totally obsolete.
Oh, yeah.
Even his own field strategy consulting.
Right.
He believes that AI is coming for that next. It's almost like technology is hot on his heels.
Yeah.
Constantly just reshaping the world around him as he's working.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It highlights that urgency to understand AI's potential impact.
Right.
And Gordon really argues that this current wave of change with AI is going to be even bigger than those that came before.
Okay, so he delves into all the hype surrounding AI.
Yeah.
You know, we often think of AI as this all-knowing robotic force.
The Terminator.
Exactly.
Right.
But Gordon really emphasizes that what we're dealing with right now is what they call neuro AI.
Okay.
So AI focused on specific tasks.
Not some all-powerful general intelligence.
Exactly,
Right.
like some sci-fi movie.
I see.
And he says that's where the emergence of generative AI tools like ChatGPT is really significant
For sure.
because it's democratized access to AI.
Absolutely.
So it's available to basically anyone now with an internet connection.
Right.
It's really wild to think about.
Yeah.
We've gone from this world where AI required massive investments
Right.
and these huge teams of data scientists to basically anyone being able to leverage this power,
It's incredible.
which leads to its own set of challenges and opportunities.
Of course.
So on one hand, we're seeing significant productivity gains as people use these tools.
Yeah.
They can work more efficiently.
Uh-huh.
Some studies are already showing big time savings
I see.
across all sorts of different tasks.
That makes sense.
But here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
Despite all of these productivity gains, most companies are struggling with how to actually measure the return on investment of AI.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's a paradox.
For sure.
Reports are predicting trillions of dollars in economic impact.
Right.
But CFOs are having a hard time connecting those gains to tangible bottom line results.
Uh-huh.
And Gordon suggests that this is because a lot of these productivity increases are happening at the individual level
Okay.
organically.
Hmm.
Employees are working faster and smarter. But it hasn't necessarily translated into widespread cost savings or immediate revenue growth for companies,
Right.
which leads to this crucial question.
What's that?
Are we approaching a scaling plateau?
Interesting.
Can AI keep advancing at this crazy speed, or are we hitting the limitations of current technology?
He does talk about some potential constraints, right?
He does.
Like insufficient data energy limitations and a shortage of people with the right skills.
Exactly.
It's not just about the algorithms anymore.
Right.
You need the infrastructure and resources to train and sustain these complex AI models.
Totally. And these constraints are getting more intertwined with geopolitical factors.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The competition for resources,
Uh-huh.
the global race for AI dominance.
That's a big one.
All of this adds another layer of complexity.
Absolutely.
But despite all of these hurdles, investment in AI is skyrocketing.
It is.
Tech giants are pouring billions into development,
Like-
exceeding even the spending of some large nations.
That's wild.
It's a clear sign that they see AI as the future.
Right. But Gordon reminds us,
Yeah.
even if this hype dies down,
Mm-hmm.
the impact of AI is inevitable.
Like the dot-com bubble.
He actually makes that comparison.
He does.
He talks about the dot-com bubble bursting in the early 2000s.
Huh?
A lot of people kind of dismissed the internet after that.
Right, they thought it was over.
But companies like Amazon,
Right.
they were quietly building the foundation for a future that would just completely reshape retail.
They were way ahead of the curve.
And a decade later,
Yeah,
Amazon's revolution was undeniable.
it was.
Gordon believes AI is on a similar trajectory.
Oh, okay.
We're in the early stages.
So the biggest changes are yet to come.
Exactly.
Wow.
So how does all of this affect businesses and us as individuals?
Good question.
Well, Gordon emphasizes that AI is fundamentally challenging the traditional ways we think about business.
Okay.
In the past, companies had to choose between personalization speed and scale,
Mm-hmm.
but AI-powered businesses like Amazon,
Yeah.
they can achieve all three at the same time. It's a whole new ballgame.
It's a really powerful flywheel effect.
Explain that.
So more data fuels better products,
Uh-huh.
which then attract more customers,
Right.
which generates even more data.
It just keeps building on itself.
It's a continuous cycle of improvement.
That's powerful.
And he uses the legal industry as an example.
Okay.
Tasks that used to be done by expensive lawyers can now be automated,
Oh, wow.
potentially leading to lower costs
Mm-hmm.
and a complete upheaval in how those services are priced.
So how can businesses adapt to that?
That's the question.
Yeah.
Do you try to be the first mover, the biggest player, or focus on specializing in a niche?
Interesting.
And then how do you price your services in a market where AI is driving those costs down?
Tough questions.
And he also talks about how traditional career paths are being disrupted.
In what way?
Think about the familiar pyramid structure of a lot of service industries,
Okay.
with those entry-level positions forming the base.
Yeah.
Well, AI is taking over a lot of those routine tasks.
So the pyramid is getting flipped on its head.
Exactly.
Wow.
And that creates an urgent need for new training models.
I can see that.
How do we prepare the next generation of leaders when the jobs that used to provide that training are disappearing?
Right.
He uses the British motorcycle industry as an example.
Okay.
They were completely overtaken by Japanese manufacturers
Huh?
who started with affordable, low-end products
Right.
and gradually moved up the value chain,
Yeah.
eventually dominating the market.
It's a classic disruption story.
And a powerful lesson:
For sure.
you can't underestimate AI even in these seemingly early stages.
No, you can't.
And this brings us to the global implications.
Okay.
Gordon argues that AI's impact on the service sector will be as big as China's impact on manufacturing.
Wow.
And he's not just talking about efficiency gains.
No, Adam.
He is envisioning a potential shift in global economic power,
Interesting.
with countries like India and Africa potentially benefiting from AI in ways they haven't from previous technological advances.
That would be huge.
It could be.
Yeah.
But he does acknowledge the potential downsides, too.
Of course.
Job displacement and social unrest are real concerns.
They are.
This isn't some utopian vision where everyone wins equally.
Right.
There will be winners and losers as this all plays out.
So how do we navigate that? And that's why Gordon really stresses the need for strong leadership
Right.
and well thought out policy
Uh-huh.
to guide us through this crazy period of change.
Like steering a ship through a storm.
Yeah, he even compares it to the Industrial Revolution,
Oh, wow.
you know, a time of massive social and economic upheaval.
Right.
So much changed so quickly back then.
He uses the printing press as an example, too.
Oh, that's a good one.
It was this groundbreaking invention,
Obviously.
democratized knowledge,
Yeah.
but it also led to some unforeseen consequences.
Like what?
Like the Protestant Reformation,
Oh, right.
centuries of religious conflict.
Wow.
It's a reminder that technological advances always come with a degree of unpredictability. We can't always predict how things will play out,
No, we can't.
even with the best intentions.
It's like opening Pandora's box sometimes.
One of the things Gordon highlights is the potential shift in global power.
Yeah, how so?
He argues that we're already seeing a resurgence of U.S. dominance,
Right.
especially in AI development.
Okay.
He cites the Global AI Index.
Uh-huh.
It ranks the U.S. significantly ahead of other countries.
In terms of AI capabilities?
Exactly.
Well, he also points out that countries like the UAE and India are leading in AI adoption.
Right, so it's not just about who creates the technology.
but who actually uses it effectively.
And this race for AI integration could lead to some interesting changes on the global stage,
Yeah, some real shakeups.
potentially.
And this ties into his point about AI's potential to level the playing field.
How so?
Well, if access to these AI tools and knowledge becomes more widespread,
Yeah.
it could really empower developing countries
Uh-huh.
and help break down traditional barriers.
Like language. He paints this optimistic picture of a future where people in Africa,
Yeah.
they can access education and healthcare
Wow.
in their native languages
That would be amazing.
through their mobile phones.
That's the power of AI.
But of course, there's a flip side.
Right, there always is.
He also talks about the rise of deepfakes,
Oh, yeah.
the spread of misinformation,
Right.
the erosion of trust.
Our sources of information.
Exactly. We're already seeing how AI can be used to manipulate narratives
For sure.
and sow discord,
It's scary.
which brings up an important point:
What's that?
bias in AI systems.
Oh, that's huge.
If most of the data used to train these models comes from the US and Europe,
Yeah.
won't that inherently shape the output
Oh, Christ.
in ways that might not be fair or universally applicable?
It's a big concern.
Whose values
Yeah.
will ultimately shape this AI-powered future?
Right.
And is regulation the answer?
It's a good question.
Gordon is skeptical.
He is.
He says there's a lot of talk about AI regulation,
I heard that.
but the industry is still mostly driven by these big tech companies,
Right.
and their main focus is profit.
Not always ethical considerations.
And he sees a trend where these companies are becoming more intertwined with the military,
Oh, wow.
with defense industries.
That's a bit unsettling.
This blurring of lines between technology, data, and defense raises some serious ethical questions.
Definitely.
Gordon describes AI as this lens through which we're increasingly viewing the world.
I like that.
It shapes our understanding of everything.
Right. From race and gender to innovation and national security.
It's not just a tool anymore.
It's a framework for how we think.
Exactly.
So what does all of this mean for us as individuals?
That's the big question.
Yeah.
Gordon acknowledges that a lot of people are feeling anxious
Makes sense.
about this rapid technological change.
The fear of losing their jobs.
Right.
Feeling overwhelmed by the pace of innovation.
It's understandable.
It is.
But he introduces this concept called the Kasparov window.
Okay, I've never heard that.
It's this period of time where humans working with AI can actually outperform AI working alone.
So it's like a sweet spot.
Exactly.
Where human ingenuity and AI's processing power work together.
It's like that chess grandmaster playing against a powerful chess AI.
Right.
Individually, they might struggle, but together they're a force to be reckoned with.
I get it.
But he cautions that this window might be closing.
As AI gets smarter,
Exactly.
so what can we do to adapt?
Well, he emphasizes embracing AI as a tool
Okay.
and developing skills that complement its capabilities.
So not fearing it.
Right. It's about working with it.
To our advantage.
And he stresses the value of skills like critical thinking, creativity, and emotional intelligence.
Those are uniquely human qualities.
But exactly.
And those will be in high demand.
As AI takes over more of those routine tasks,
It makes you think about education.
it does.
Will our schools need to change?
To prepare students for this new world.
These are conversations we need to be having now to make sure the next generation is ready.
And Gordon also warns about the potential for AI to amplify existing biases.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
He mentions Amazon's recruitment tool.
Mm-hmm.
It showed a bias against women
Wow.
and some medical AI systems that were less accurate for people with darker skin tones.
That's not good.
These are reminders that AI isn't neutral.
Right.
It reflects the biases of its creators.
And the data it's trained on.
So if we're not careful, AI could make inequality worse.
Instead of bridging those divides.
And this leads to his most thought-provoking question.
Hit me with it.
Is liberal democracy at stake in the age of AI?
Whoa.
He's concerned that values like privacy and individual freedom
Yeah.
might be challenged in a world where these AI systems, with their centralized control,
Mm-hmm.
offer better outcomes.
At the expense of autonomy.
Exactly.
He uses surveillance cameras as an example.
Oh, right.
People resist the idea of constant monitoring.
Yeah.
But if those cameras lead to less crime,
Uh-huh.
would we be more willing to accept them?
It's a trade-off.
Would we trade some privacy for security?
If the AI convinces us that it knows best,
It's a slippery slope.
it raises questions about what kind of future we want,
Do we want AI dictating our lives?
or do we want to stay in control?
It's a big question.
He compares it to the early days of the car.
Oh, interesting.
Back in the 1900s, cars were a novelty.
Right, a luxury for the wealthy.
But in a few decades, they had transformed our cities, our economies, even our wars.
It's hard to imagine life without them now.
He argues that we're at a similar point with AI.
So the decisions we make now will have huge consequences.
For the entire 21st century?
And he ends with a call to action.
What's that?
To feel empowered, not overwhelmed.
Okay.
To use our knowledge and skills to shape the future.
In a way that benefits everyone.
It's an inspiring message.
It is inspiring.
It is.
I mean, it's easy to get caught up in the anxieties around AI.
For sure.
But I like that Gordon emphasizes empowerment.
Me too.
It's not about just accepting whatever the future throws at us. It's about actively shaping it.
Taking control.
Exactly. And speaking of shaping the future,
Yeah.
there's one point from the lecture that I think we should dig into a little deeper.
Okay, what's that?
He talks about this concept of AI potentially creating a bubble of one.
A bubble of one.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So basically, each of us would be fed this personalized stream of information that reinforces our existing beliefs and biases.
Oh, wow. So it's like echo chambers on steroids.
It's like everyone living in their own little curated world,
Right.
insulated from any perspective that challenges their worldview.
That's scary.
It is.
Because how can we even address these complex issues
Right.
if we can't agree on basic facts?
And it makes us more vulnerable to manipulation.
How so?
If we trust the sources feeding us information, we're less likely to question it.
Even if it's designed to exploit our biases.
Exactly.
So how do we break out of these bubbles?
Right. Is it even possible?
I think awareness is the first step.
Okay.
We need to understand how these algorithms work, how they filter and curate information,
Yeah.
and how they subtly influence our perceptions.
It sounds like media literacy is more important now than ever.
It is.
We need to be critical thinkers.
Absolutely.
We need to question the information we see online.
Right.
Consider the source. Seek out diverse perspectives.
Don't just rely on your social media feeds or your favorite news sources.
Exactly.
Make an effort to engage with different viewpoints.
Have those uncomfortable conversations.
Step outside of those echo chambers.
And recognize that even AI-curated content is shaped by human biases.
It's a good point.
It's not all doom and gloom, though.
No.
It sounds like there are things we can do to navigate this AI-powered future.
What kinds of things?
And maybe even leverage AI itself.
Oh, interesting.
To create a more informed and connected world.
How so?
Well, there are tools being developed that can help us identify and overcome our own biases.
Like what?
I read about one that analyzes your social media feeds.
And it'll alert you if you're mostly consuming content from a limited range of sources.
So it's like reality check.
Yeah,
Encouraging you to branch out.
exactly.
And there are tools to detect misinformation and deepfakes.
Right, those are getting more sophisticated all the time.
They are.
But these tools can help us be more discerning.
As we navigate this digital age.
I'm feeling a little more optimistic now.
Me too.
It sounds like we can harness the power of AI while still protecting the values that matter.
The values that are essential to a thriving society.
Well, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into Tim Gordon's lecture.
It's been fascinating.
We've covered so much, from the impact on businesses and careers to the global shifts.
And the philosophical questions about democracy and human agency.
It's a lot to think about.
It is.
But as we always say, this deep dive is just the beginning.
It's a jumping off point.
We've given you the tools and the insights to start grappling with these complexities. Now it's up to our listeners to take it from here.
Ask yourself what resonated with you.
Yeah.
How can you use this knowledge?
In your own life, your career, your community.
What deeper questions does all of this raise?
About the world we're building.
About the future we want to create.
Because the future of AI is not predetermined.
It's a future we're all shaping together.